Have you ever wondered what happens when a Time Lord refuses to stay in time? When a face we said goodbye to years ago suddenly whispers, "What if I came back?" Because right now, somewhere between BBC's silence and Hollywood's chaos, something's brewing. Something bigger than a Christmas special. Something cinematic. I'm Jones, and welcome back to The Ending Breakdown, where we peel open universes, dig into what's hidden between the frames, and ask the questions BBC won't. And today, we're talking about the one rumor that could rewrite sci for history: David Tennant, back as the Doctor, on the big screen. Now, I know what you're thinking. Jones, they've said this before. Yeah, they have. But this time, it's different. Because Tennant himself just said the words, "We're available." That's right. The 10th Doctor himself, side by side with his companion Rose Tyler, aka Billie Piper, just dropped a nuclear-level tease at LA Comic Con. And it wasn't a joke, it was a signal. Imagine this scene: thousands of fans screaming, flashing lights, and Tennant, the man who made the line, "I don't want to go, a generation's heartbreak," smirking and saying, "I always was pitching for that." Then Billie Piper cuts in, playful, sharp, "Where's the film?" And right there the crowd explodes. Now pause, ask yourself, why would two actors, both booked solid with Netflix and Amazon projects, both say yes to the same question? Because there's something we're not being told. Let's rewind to the facts. David Tennant wasn't just another Doctor. He was the Doctor for millions. He didn't just save the universe, he defined it. When Doctor Who returned in 2005, it wasn't supposed to work. The BBC had cancelled it decades ago. Sci-fi was out, reality shows were in, and then came Christopher Eccleston, the 9th Doctor, wounded, sharp, and human. But when Eccleston left, the universe didn't collapse, it evolved, because that's when David Tennant entered the TARDIS. And let's be honest, that first time you heard him say, "Alonzi," something in you clicked. It wasn't just an alien, it was a man who felt everything and hid it behind a grin. And by his side, Rose Tyler, Billie Piper, the one companion who didn't just follow, she fell. Their chemistry wasn't acting, it was alchemy. And together, they made Doctor Who more than a show. They made it a religion. So when those two say they do a Doctor Who movie together, you listen. But here's where it gets wild. They've already done it before. Sort of. Remember the Day of the Doctor, the 50th anniversary special? Yeah, it hit theaters in select countries. And guess who starred in it? Tennant, Piper, Smith. So technically, David Tennant has already been the cinematic Doctor. But that was a glimpse, a teaser, a test. This new project, if it happens, could be the first full-scale cinematic Doctor Who film in almost 30 years. Now, the last time we got a Doctor Who movie was 1996, a TV movie starring Paul McGann. Before that, you have to jump all the way back to the 1960s, Doctor Who and the Daleks with Peter Cushing. 2 films, 1 cult following, 0 continuity. So if Tennant and Piper step into that spotlight again, we're not just talking about a cameo. We're talking about the Doctor Who multiverse officially going mainstream. And let's talk timing, because the universe of Who is messy right now. Ncuti Gatwa, the 15th Doctor, just finished his season and reportedly exited. The BBC is searching for the 16th Doctor. Names are flying, rumors, chaos, contradictions, and somewhere in that list, one name keeps flickering in the dark. Billie Piper? Yeah, you heard that right. People are actually speculating that Rose Tyler, the companion, could return as the Doctor, which, if true, would be the most poetic twist in sci-fi history. But what's really happening behind the curtain? Let's connect the dots. BBC's content chief recently said Doctor Who will continue. Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say how, not on TV,
not without Gatwa, just
continue. That's corporate code for restructuring. And when networks restructure, you know what happens next? Films. Now, let's play with a hypothetical. Imagine a Doctor Who cinematic universe, the Woniverse on film, Tennant as the legacy Doctor, Piper as a paradox Doctor, a new face stepping in as the 16th. And somewhere in the shadows, the Master returns, not just to destroy the Doctor, but to replace him. Would you pay to see that? Tell me in the comments below. Because honestly, I would sell a sonic screwdriver for that ticket. And before we go deeper into the secret clues Tennant dropped about the TARDIS redesign, if you're still watching right now, it means you love the deeper side of sci-fi like I do. So hit that subscribe button. Not just for me, but because the next few months could change Doctor Who forever, and trust me, you'll want to be here when that regeneration happens. Let's pick up right where we left off. The TARDIS door is cracked open, the timeline is splitting, and David Tennant just said he's available. But here's what no one's talking about. Why now? Why, after wrapping Good Omens 2 and prepping for Good Omens 3, would Tennant risk jumping back into the chaos of the Whoniverse? Because the answer, dear viewers, might just be hiding inside Good Omens itself. Now, stay with me, because this is where the dots start connecting. In Good Omens, Tennant plays a demon named Crowley, sarcastic, stylish, a bit broken, and deeply human beneath all that hellfire. And if you really think about it, doesn't that sound exactly like his Doctor? There's a theory floating around found forums, and it's wild that Tennant's Crowley and the Doctor are alternate universe reflections. Two immortal beings trying to do good in a universe that keeps pulling them apart. And what if that similarity isn't coincidence? What if it's set up? Picture this: a Doctor Who movie opening with Tennant wandering through a dying dimension, a burnt orange sky, the sudden of time collapsing, and suddenly a familiar face. Not Rose, not Donna, but Crowley. The same actor, two different souls, one collapsing universe. BBC meets Amazon, Heaven meets Gallifrey, the crossover no one saw coming, and maybe the one Tennant's been teasing all along. And speaking of Billie Piper, let's talk about her for a second. Because while Tennant's been juggling angels and demons, Piper has quietly rebuilt herself into one of the most versatile performers on Netflix. You've probably seen her in Wednesday, right? Creepy, confident, magnetic, but still carrying that same Rose Tyler energy. Now, the whispers say that Wednesday season 3 wraps around the same time BBC begins shooting the next Doctor Who special. Coincidence or scheduling coordination? Because insiders have already spotted Piper in Cardiff. And if you know anything about Doctor Who, you know Cardiff means one thing: production. But this is where things get dark, because while fans are celebrating possible returns, BBC insiders are panicking. See, the problem isn't Tennant or Piper, it's ownership. When Doctor Who moved under Disney's distribution umbrella in 2023, the show's creative control became complicated. BBC owns the Doctor, Disney owns the streaming rights, and both want the final say. So when Tennant and Piper tease a movie, it's not just fan service, it's rebellion. They're not asking for permission anymore. They're reminding the studios, we are the faces that built your universe. Let's get hypothetical again. Imagine a Doctor Who movie that doesn't take place in the timeline we know. No Gallifrey, no Umet, no Torchwood, just a fractured space between universes. The Bad Wolf realm. A place where time collapses in on itself and every version of the Doctor exists simultaneously. Where Billie Piper isn't Rose Tyler, she's the Doctor who was never born. And Tennant, he's the last one left who remembers how it all began. Now tell me that wouldn't melt the internet. And here's a forbidden detail I probably shouldn't even mention, but according to a few very brave production assistants on the LA Comic Con floor, there was a closed room meeting right after that panel. BBC execs. Disney for distribution leads. And one line written on a whiteboard: Doctor Who, The Final Paradox, 2027. Now, I'm not saying that's the movie title, but I'm not saying it isn't either. Let's zoom out for a second. Why are we, decades later, still obsessed with this one character? A wandering alien in a blue police box. Because Doctor Who isn't about time travel, it's about identity. It's about what happens when you lose yourself 1,000 times and still choose to be kind. And Tennant embodied that better than anyone. He wasn't just clever, he hurt. And that's what made him ours. So when he says, I'd love to come back, especially for a film, it's not nostalgia. It's closure, the one regeneration he never got to finish. Now let's have some fun, because this is the ending breakdown, and we don't do theories halfway. If the Doctor Who movie is real, who directs it? Dan Trachtenberg, the same genius behind Prey and 10 Cloverfield Lane, is rumored to have met with BBC in late August. A director obsessed with isolation, cosmic horror, and survival. Perfect for a Doctor lost in the multiverse, right? And who writes it? Russell T Davies, the man who resurrected Doctor Who in 2005, has already said he's interested in theatrical storytelling. Translation, I'm writing something big. So let's loop back, full circle, like a time vortex collapsing on itself. David Tennant and Billie Piper at Comic-Con didn't just answer a fan question, they reignited a spark that BBC has been hiding under corporate paperwork for years. They reminded us that sometimes stories don't end, they regenerate. And if you're anything like me, if your heart still beats a little faster when you hear that faint TARDIS hum, then you know what this means. We're not done. Not yet. Because somewhere out there, between time and cinema, between streaming contracts and stardust, the Doctor is waiting. Before I go, I want to know what you think. Would you watch a Doctor Who cinematic reboot starring Tennant and Piper? Or do you want a brand new Doctor to take the TARDIS keys? Drop your thoughts below. I read every single comment, even the wild ones. And if you're still here after 20 minutes of timelines, theories, and forbidden knowledge, you're exactly the kind of Whovian this channel was made for. So subscribe now, because when the BBC finally drops that trailer, we'll be here frame by frame, breaking it down like time itself depends on it. I'm Jones. And remember, the universe is big, but stories, they're bigger.